You gotta.
See, I'm the belt man.
And there's a bleep.
I'm Jameson.
And I'm Jamie.
And this is Braden and Maddie.
We recently took a leap of faith, trading in our home in Georgia for some space in my parents' house.
We gave up my high-paying corporate job to pursue our dream of building stuff and empowering others.
Whether we're building a family,
Building a business,
building a house,
or building a table,
we like to do it ourselves.
this is our DIY life. Hey guys, I'm Jameson and this is Jamie, and this is episode number 10 of the Dream House Built.
In this episode, we go over some big stuff that happens in the house. One of those being the floors, the trim, and the doors.
Yeah, the interior doors and getting the flooring in place really bring the house together and start to make it feel like it's gonna actually be livable.
A real house.
James, you got the screws? Yeah, they're sitting right there on that.
I saw that.
Yeah, they're in that box. What do you want to do here? You want to take those pins out of there?
You sure you want to do all that work, extra work to do that? It's not that hard to set it with the door in it.
Did you measure the floor underneath it? No, I thought you were doing that.
I wish you wouldn't give me so much anxiety while you did this.
Which part?
The part that stresses me out about working with you. There's a lot of parts I said, but this one was, I'm just looking at you right now saying, do you remember what I
I'll
said?
clean up. I'm done.
Thank you. Oh, the interior doors.
So months ago, we ordered the interior doors through Home Depot, and the doors that we ended up choosing were the L series composite doors from Geldwin.
A L7 Winnie.
Do not get them.
I don't know what the word is. I'm at a loss for words, but I would not recommend Geldwin as a manufacturer, especially for interior doors.
We probably should have done a little bit more research maybe on interior doors.
Yeah.
Instead of just assuming, because it's a big name, that they would be great doors. They're not.
When we had the doors custom painted, because we didn't want to waste time. We have a lot of doors and we didn't want to waste time painting them on site. So we had them painted, and when they got here, there was something wrong with every single door.
And by something wrong, it was really just stuff that is stupid. Like,
Yeah.
we had the factory finished doors, but they didn't take stickers off prior
Yeah.
to painting them, so.
The majority of our doors were either warped, nicked or chipped during shipping, or there was
Painted
some
over
kind of
stickers,
imperfection from the manufacturer.
Multiple things. So needless to say, the good part is that we did work with Home Depot. We worked through Home Depot on the doors, and if it were not for Holly at Home Depot, I think I would have cried multiple times. That woman has become my best friend. They have been nothing but helpful. So we've had all the doors replaced in our house, not just once, but some of them twice, and we're still waiting on doors.
And it's the good thing about working with Home Depot is that we've always had good experiences there, and they really took care of us in this situation, which was a tough one. It was a big order, and they just made sure that we were that the situation was handled properly, and we really appreciate all the time that they put into making sure that we were happy with the end result. So there is some imperfections that we're just gonna have to live with. However, Home Depot made it right, so thank you, Home Depot. So when it came time to install the doors, I did some research in the days leading up to it on the best practices to install interior doors. Everything that I found online was pretty complex, and it was, you know, fasten this corner first and then this corner and then this screw in this place and so on and so forth. And there was a lot of steps which I would never remember or do correctly in that order. So we ended up having Jamie's dad's friend, who is a trim carpenter, come over and show us his method. And we kind of took the best of what we liked from each of those methods, but learning from someone in person that has done it for 30, 40 plus years was really nice to have that type of expertise come out and show us how to do it. So we learned our own method, and I'm gonna go into more detail in another video on how we can install, or how you can install interior doors or pre-hung interior doors.
Like a pro.
Like a pro. And we really got a system down to where we could install them in I think it was like 15 minutes per door or less, which is really nice. So with the interior doors set, there was one more step that we needed to do before we could start laying the floors. Our walls, our interior walls, were actually a little bit over 10 feet. They were about 10 feet 4 inches. So when they hung the drywall, in order to efficiently do that, they ran 2 full sheets sideways, which gives you 8 feet, and then they ripped another sheet in half. So that came down to 10 feet. So there was about a 4-inch gap on most of the walls, the interior walls, so that they could use both halves of that board. While the trim will cover that gap, we needed to actually fur out the bottom to be able to carry the bottom edge of the trim. So what we did with that was we just ripped down a bunch of OSB in about 3-inch strips and then tacked that up all around the bottom of the wall to be able to fur that out enough to carry that trim.
Your pants in here?
So once we had the gap filled around the bottom of the wall and the doors in place, we had the flooring guys come out to go ahead and start to install the floors. So we actually picked this floor out through my dad's company, Esquire Interiors. It is a floor from Du Chateau. It's in their Strata collection, and the color is Terrine, and I absolutely love this floor. It hides so much.
It does. It's got just the right amount of character, not too much, not too little. But the best part about the floor, in our opinion, is the hard wax oil finish.
Yes.
It allows you to repair certain spots if they get scratched, and it's just a really cool finish. It just preserves the wood, but it still allows all that character to show through.
And very durable with kids and dogs.
Yeah. So the floors went down in, I think it was about 5 days it took the guys. There was three guys that came out, and we kind of just let them run the show. We ended up putting a 30-pound, like a tar paper that you would use to go underneath of shingles or whatnot on top of a roof. And that just kind of quiets that floor a little bit, and it gives you another layer between the wood floor and the subfloor. So most people get a little scared off or just are unfamiliar with a product like this with a hard wax oil finish. It actually requires some maintenance. So every so often you have to clean it with the appropriate cleaner, but you also have to re-oil it about once a year.
Which is simple. It's basically just mopping it on the floor and then staying off of it for 24 hours. It's not the end of the world, but in our opinion, it's easier to maintain, because if our dogs were to scratch a polyurethane floor, then the only fix for that really is to refinish your entire floor.
Yeah.
If you pick a hardwood floor, or if you get an engineered wood floor, there has to be enough of a thickness on top of it to even have it refinished anyway. So for us, this was just the way to go.
Yeah, and I actually, in our old house, we had that problem where our dog destroyed our polyurethane floor. And we looked at the cost to refinish that floor, and I thought that you could just kind of scuff up the polyurethane and put a new layer down. that's not the case. Most guys want to refinish the entire floor, and the cost of that is about the price of putting a whole new floor down. So another cool thing to dress up the inside of the house that we did was we put up some faux wood beams. And the company that we ordered these beams from it was called
A to Z Faux Beams.
AZ Faux Wood Beams. And you can go on their website and you can kind of customize the look and the length and what you need.
And we got a couple different color samples sent
yeah.
to us, and then we picked out, I don't even know the name of the color. Dark walnut.
Dark walnut. And they turned out great. They look surprisingly very real. They're actually made out of foam, so they're super lightweight.
Yeah, and our ceilings are so high, so it's not like anybody's really getting super up close and personal with them. So I don't think anybody can tell the difference when they come over.
The thing that we wanted was we have a span in here in the living room that's about 25 feet long, and in order to find a continuous beam that would fit there, that was a real wood beam, for one, it'd be really hard to find. For two, it'd be really expensive. And for three, it would be a huge pain in the butt to install. And maybe somewhat unsafe to have something that heavy hanging over your head, especially with a chandelier attached to it. So we went with faux wood beams and they turned out great. They were pretty easy to install. And all you do to install those is simply just screw some boards to the wall and then slip the faux wood beam.
Yeah, we put glue on it and then slipped it over top of those wood supports that were on the ceiling, and then just screwed them in.
Just tacked it in from the side with a brad nailer and some screws to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. But they're so lightweight, I don't see them ever having any problems. We put some down each of the hallways.
Just to break things up a little bit.
One in the living room to kind of match. So one of the jobs in the house that we knew we wanted to take on ourselves because we knew we could spend or save a lot of money doing it was the trim work. And I knew I was capable of doing trim work. However, I didn't want to do anything super complex or time consuming. But we also wanted that kind of traditional look we went for a more simplistic style of trim. So we settled on a Craftsman style look, and how we achieved that was we went with a 5/4 by 6 board as the top, what we'll call a header. And we extended that beyond these vertical 1x4s on the sides of the door. We extended it beyond each side of that by about 1/2 inch. And then to tie it in at the bottom of the door, we actually added these 5/4 plinth blocks. And we added about a 3/4 of an inch in height from the baseboard, which is also a 3/4 it's a 1x8, which is 3/4 of an inch thick by 7 1/4 inches high. So we went with an 8-inch tall plinth block that is a 5/4 inch thick. And then we did a 4-inch wide. So it's slightly wider than this vertical 1x4 and slightly taller than the 1x8 trim. So the cool thing about this was that the headers didn't have to be spot on. They could be like within 1/8 of an inch. And we knew what the dimensions of those headers needed to be based on the openings of the doors. So we went ahead and cut those down, as well as the plinth blocks. We cut all of those down to size ahead of time so that we could paint them before putting them up.
Yeah, so those boards were the only ones that were not primed ahead of time. Everything else was pre-primed. So we went ahead and put a coat of primer on those, and then I did 2 coats of paint on all of the trim prior to installing it.
And that is including the 1x8 baseboards and the 1x4 vertical boards that flank each of the doors.
So we love the way the trim turned out. It's just very simple, and I think it goes well with everything in the house and pretty easy to do.
So when it came time to prep the trim for paint, I quickly realized that I was not the trim carpenter that I thought I was. Luckily, our sponsor for this video, DAP, sent us some awesome products to make sure that we brought the trim up to par before we applied the paint. The painter's putty was excellent for filling all of the brad nail holes that secured the trim to the wall. And then the Plastic Wood X was perfect for filling all of the screw holes in the door frames. And then last but not least, we've got Alex Plus to tie all the trim into the drywall for a perfect finish. So again, thank you DAP for sponsoring this episode. And remember, caulk and paint make you the carpenter that you ain't. So when we were laying out this house, we knew that we wanted the staircase leading down to the basement to be nice and open, which meant that we had to have a nice looking staircase.
A beautiful staircase. In the original plan, there was actually a door there before the staircase, and I just wanted the basement to feel like part of the upstairs and not feel like a basement. So we opened that up and we decided to put a very beautiful staircase in.
So Jamie had kind of scoured the internet and kind of came up with some ideas for what she wanted the railing to look like. And
These were exactly what I had in my mind, was these railings.
So coincidentally, we actually sat down at an event with a guy from LJ Smith. The cool thing about them is that they have designers on staff that you can basically send your layout to. They ask for all the dimensions that they need, and they will mock up a staircase and all the materials that you need for that staircase, which was great in our situation because I didn't really know a whole lot about stair systems, and they do. They are the experts, so it was cool to be able to work with them through this process. And then we got all the materials on site, and then we actually had our trim carpenter who does some of the more detailed stuff for us that we want to look good and know that we can't do that ourselves. We had him come out and we worked with him on installing all of these steps.
Something similar we did with the floors upstairs is they're an oil finish floor. So with the staircase, I decided to also do an oil finish on the staircase. So prior to everything going in place, I went ahead and I painted all the risers and the skirt board. And then I went ahead and finished all of the step treads before we put everything in place. And I chose to go with a Rubio Monocoat for the finish on the steps. It was like 5% smoke, so it has a little bit of the gray tone, but it's a very natural looking on your wood. And the best part about it is if the dog scratches it somewhere, which she has, you can just kind of sand out that area and throw a little bit more oil on it, and it's good to go.
Yeah, it works really nice. And honestly, so once that got down, we started installing the railings. The railings came together pretty easily.
Yeah.
We had some minor hiccups, and there's just a lot going on there. So it was nice to have our trim carpenter there to walk us through that process.
Well, and it was kind of a learning process for him as well, because he has actually never installed a railing quite like this. So it was kind of a fun learning process, and in the end, I mean, he was amazed. He thought the staircase turned out beautiful, and so do we.
Yeah, so we've got all these nice, clean, modern lines, but then you've also got this nice, warm wooden handrail at the top that kind of ties it in together with the treads and everything. And this is oiled just like the stairs, so it matches and looks great all together.